All right, so Kamala Harris recently embarrassed herself by talking to Charlemagne on one of his shows, I presume. I'm going to play for you a clip of her being asked by Charlemagne, who's the real president? Is it Joe Manchin or Joe Biden? And look at her insanely elitist and ridiculous response.
Who's the superhero that's going to speak against Joe Manchin? No. I want to know who's the real president of this country. Is it Joe Biden or Joe Manchin?
I'm sorry, I interrupted. I said the vice president here. It's Simone. I'm so sorry, Charlemagne. We have to
She can hear me.
You hear me? Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me, Madam Vice
So
President?
I'm sorry. We got it right.
Uh-oh.
So I'm sorry to interrupt.
They're acting like they can't hear me.
I can hear you.
Oh, so who's the real president of this country? Is it Joe Manchin or Joe Biden, Madam Vice President?
Come on, Charlemagne. It's Joe Biden.
I can't
No,
tell
no,
sometimes.
no. It's Joe Biden. And don't start talking like a Republican about asking whether or not he's president.
Do you think Joe Manchin is a problem?
It's Joe Biden, and I'm vice president, and my name is Kamala Harris.
Wow, that was, of course, embarrassing and just outright shameful. Look at that. So she's asked a very good question because, as we've seen, now it's not just Joe Manchin, but because he's the focal point of this discussion and their discussion there, that question there, let's just focus in on him. So he has basically been a part of a movement that has torpedoed Joe Biden's supposed agenda. I mean, it's in question now that we know what we know, if he even cares about his supposed agenda. I don't think he does, but to each his own, I guess. But to her response to a perfectly well put and genuine question that a lot of people are wondering, that's what he gets. Now, first of all, she immediately gets cut off before she even starts speaking by her aide there. I think she said her name was Simone Sanders, and she tried to end the interview. You see how these politicians are coddled and they're defended from any kind of critical questions? I guess maybe up until that point, they were comfortable with the question that they've been asking because they can give you typical bullshit answers that a politician will give you. But the second she's asked a real question, oh, it's all system go, we gotta go, I'm sorry, time is up, we have to leave. And as they're doing this, and this, I love Charlemagne for this, I thought this was hilarious. I laughed throughout that entire video. He was like, she's pretending like she can't hear me. And he's saying this as she can hear him. Like, she can literally hear him speaking, and he's saying, oh, she's pretending like she can't hear me. That, to me, was hilarious. And I also think that kind of prodded her to give a response, because he's basically saying, look at these people. They're wimps. Look, they're bitches. They're pretending like they can't hear me, and they can hear me perfectly fine. And then she comes in, and she says, and I hate this, and this is absolutely terrible, and this is why the Democrats lose. She says, no, it's Joe Biden. And then she says, and don't start talking like a Republican about asking whether or not he's president. It's Joe Biden, and I'm vice president. My name is Kamala Harris. Okay, first of all, I see what she's trying to do here. She's trying to say, don't start talking like a Republican, in the sense that, like, oh, they're questioning the election. But that's not what he's asking. He's asking about, well, where's his presidential power? Because it seems like he has none. It seems like Joe Manchin is the one that's running everything behind the scenes. And, of course, to the public, that's what it looks like. I mean, that's quite literally what's happening. Him, Carson Sinema, the quote-unquote moderates, they're not moderates, they're corporate extremists. They're torpedoing good legislation that would improve the lives of the vast majority of the American people. And he's asking a substantive question. And she can't answer it. And she retreats to, oh, you sound like a Republican. You sound like the opposition. And notice how that's what she relinquishes his question to. Look, Charlemagne, based upon this clip and other clips that I've seen of him, I think it's suffice to say that he may consider himself a Democrat. In terms of voting, he may vote democratically. Now, I don't know this, but I'm just assuming. But assuming that he is, so because he asked that question, he's talking like a Republican in the eyes of Kamala Harris, a corrupt politician. So he can't be a frustrated and upset Democratic voter that was promised things by you, Miss Harris, and the president, Mr. Joe Biden, his entire administration, and everybody else. He can't be a frustrated voter that those promises aren't being delivered. He can't be a frustrated voter that this Build Back Better agenda, something that they said would have been passed a while ago, doesn't seem like it's going to get passed, and he's wondering what the hell's going on. He has to be a Republican, so he sounds like a Republican. And that just goes to show you how she looks at politics. It's all a game. It's all a game. It's my side against their side. It's the Democrats against the Republicans. It's the blue against the red. And that's how a lot of people look at it, but especially these politicians. Want to know why? Because they have decent lives, they're making a great living, and everything's fine. And these policy decisions don't really affect them at all unless it's a tax cut. You know, they have health care. You know, their life is great. They can go on vacation whenever they want. Everything's fine for them. So none of this matters to them. So it's just my side against theirs. You know, this word politics, there's another word that's derived from it. Policy. Policy. That's what this is about. And that's what Charlemagne's asking about. You know, the policy. Why is Joe Manchin stopping this policy that the president said that he wants? Therefore, who's the real president here? And that's her response. I want to get into another question that he asked, because he asked some pretty decent questions here. So this was Charlemagne. So he talked about their inability to fulfill the agenda, costing them votes, especially with the black community. And he says, at what point do we, like, and I'm quoting here, you know, stop being politicians and just be real with the American people, Madam Vice President, because we know Joe Manchin is ruining this country and stuff. He said the stuff he's holding up progress on are hurt our people and are hurting black people in particular. If Democrats allow Joe Manchin to continue to do this, how do we convince black people to come out and continue to vote for you now? This is from Charlemagne. This isn't the best phrased question. It's not just Joe Manchin, but I don't really want to get into that. But what he's asking is your inaction, your inability to improve the lives of the American people. How is this going to affect voters, especially black voters, in these upcoming elections? And this is her response to him. She says, the issue isn't the Democratic Party's internal battles, but rather the Republican Party that is consistently and unanimously standing in the way of progress. So she's blaming the Republicans. And this is what she says, and I'm quoting here. It is my recollection that not one GOP voter voted for the American Rescue Plan. It is my knowledge that we couldn't get them to even agree, not one to debate. She's blaming the Republicans here. Let me remind you something. The Democrats have the presidency, they have the House, and they have the Senate. Why are we blaming the minority party here? I genuinely don't understand. But that's their cop-out answer, because she, like Joe Manchin, like Kyrsten Sinema, although to different extents, are corrupt. Look, man, Kamala Harris, this is embarrassing. This is shameful. She didn't offer a single good response to these questions that he was asking. And look, that's the kind of treatment that you get for asking politicians questions and trying to hold them accountable. That's how you get treated, you know? That's how you get treated. Smugly, with the most elitism in the world. And before I end this video, I just want to go down Kamala Harris's record very quickly, because this is supposed to be the Democratic heir. You know, this is supposed to be the person that if Joe Biden doesn't run in 2024, which he says he is, we don't even know if he's going to be alive in 2024. It's going to be Kamala Harris, they say. First of all, her approval rating is 28%. It's worse than Joe Biden's. It's absolutely abysmal. Nobody likes her. That's why they don't typically have her come out and say things, because the more she talks, the more people hate her. And I mean, look, it's a given. Let me just go over her record very quickly. And these are all facts. So first of all, now, you know, she's a former cop, all right, or whatever, law enforcement. So she's against body cams on police. That's absolutely ridiculous and insane. We know that when body cams are on police, there is a decrease in them acting unjustly. Now, some of them still do. Of course, we know, we see the videos, but she's against body cams on cops. She laughed at the notion of legal marijuana. We know how popular marijuana is in today's day and age, especially, but this was years ago, and it still had some popularity, not what it has today, but nevertheless, the majority of the country supported it, or supported legalizing it. She is a proponent of civil asset forfeiture. If you don't know what that is, I really suggest you look it up. That's where a cop can legally rob you. It's unconstitutional. Let's say you have an interaction with the police. They can take your car, they can take your money on the basis of, I think you're going to do something illegal with it. Allow me to continue. She supports giving parents criminal records if their kids commit truancy. She did not prosecute Steve Mnuchin when she was the California AG. If you don't know who Steve Mnuchin is, he's the former Treasury Secretary of the Trump administration, who actually, during the CARES Act, when they did that big 2020 bailout for the corporation and the rich, was handing out money, like $1 trillion a day, to all his buddies and rich people and, you know, the powerful CEOs that lead these gigantic corporations and shareholders. Yeah, he's a fucking criminal. He's a thief. He's insanely corrupt. And she didn't prosecute him when he was illegally foreclosing on people during the subprime mortgage crisis. She could, and her office wanted her to, but she neglected it and said, no, it's okay. This is who she is. She's one of the most repulsive political figures that's alive today. And that's not an understatement. And the Democrats hide behind her because she's a black woman. She's black, she's a woman. So that therefore makes her the second coming of Jesus Christ. It's absolutely insane. She promotes the 3 strike laws. You know what that is. You commit 3 crimes, you go to jail for life. Absolutely insane. And that just, I mean, you know, it's just being pro-prison. I mean, that's literally what that is. Look, man, she's a terrible politician. If she's the person that the Democrats want to, you know, ride behind if Joe Biden doesn't run, or any other corporate fuck, you know, they're doomed anyway. They're doomed either way it go. Things aren't looking great for them. But this is shameful. She should be embarrassed.